Yes. Oh man. Okay, when God revealed this to me, oh, it made so much sense because how when we are, you know, when you go through a conditioning of sorts, right? And then we have to, right, we're purging that subconscious, we're detoxing from radio frequency poisoning and all of that, right? Okay, so I want to share with y'all that the little fire drill they while it caught me off guard, yeah, we good. We good. I just want y'all to know that, okay? That when you start the detoxing process, okay, you're going to notice it's all part of that heightened awareness, too, by the way. So let's let those notifications go out and do our usual check and things like that. And I'm going to be moving around a little bit, just so y'all know, okay? Yes. And it's really intriguing the more that God reveals to me about our autonomic nervous system and how it really does. It plays a huge role in our traumatization, right? It plays a huge role in how we were groomed since birth to tolerate the abuse. Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, it really is. Because remember, the enemy targets that autonomic nervous system. Yeah, he does that first. So the lessons that we learn, yeah, he does that first. Okay, he has to target that autonomic nervous system because it's not protected by tissues and organs. Okay, never forget that. It's not, yeah, okay, so he targets it because it is largely responsible for our fear responses. Let that sink in. Okay? Never forget, the enemy is all about that installation of fear. He needs to keep people living in fear so that they are easier to control and manipulate, aka abuse. And they stay trauma bonded to the world. So never forget the importance of that because it plays a major role. And so we're going to cover some things that we've already talked about because it fits right into how our senses, the sense of smell, hearing, seeing, and then feeling, the touch, right? Because all of it plays a role in the conditioning of the ANS, which is autonomic nervous system. And it also is a big part of our senses, are a big part of the unconditioning as well. Because God revealed to me that, okay, because I was still wondering why certain parts of the body are responding a certain way that we move occasionally, where it tries to, right, because it associated, yes, the ANS associated certain movements with a perceived threat. Well, it used to be a threat when there was staples in the head, right? Because that was metal. But see, the ANS don't know that they're not there anymore, so I have to unlearn. Well, I wasn't putting these in. Okay, yeah, I wasn't putting these in for much of the day unless I'm getting up here and other places are running errands, things like that. But for the most part, I would leave them out. And God said, I need you to put those in. But okay. They said, now your autonomic nervous system can hear your movements. That's how it's going to break the association. So in my case, That's what God revealed to me. And so you can take that tidbit and modify and fine tune and let the Heavenly Father help you connect dots for your own, what you're starting to notice. Okay. So there you go. Because certain movements, the ANF needed to hear. Even though I can hear without them, we can hear better with them, right? So, yeah. So God's like, I need you to put those back in because I'm not in an environment where I need to cut out a bunch of distraction anymore. Okay? With the occasional fire drill and then whatever, radio frequency blast that they like to, okay? That's every once in a while. And yes, I'm taking notes, as we always do. But this is huge because it is dependent on our five senses for the conditioning and for the unconditioning. Okay? Because as you go through the detoxing, things are going to fluctuate, right? Yes, your taste buds are going to fluctuate. Your sense of taste is going to. So don't panic if you're eating leftovers, okay, the day before, you could taste it as it is, and then the next day it tastes a little off. That's normal. Don't let that deter you from, don't let that trick you into throwing that out. There's nothing wrong with it. You just made it. It's just your taste buds are a little altered, okay? They're going to do that until everything levels back out. So, same thing with your sense of smell as things start to level back out, right? Yeah, and then the momentary hallucinogenic thing, right? You get tricked into thinking you saw something out of the corner of your eye and you didn't, or you get tricked into thinking that you heard something that you didn't. Okay, so when you are here, come on now, it's just the Godhead and I in here, and I know I don't have anything that makes long, high-pitched beeping noises. When I say long, I'm not talking about my car alarm. Okay, it just does little chirps. Okay, but that's really about it. The microwave, we have an option to turn that off as far as the sound. So, so I'm like, if I hear something like that out of the blue and look outside, there's nothing there, what have you, then we know. But all those things that occur because of the excess of salt and radio frequency, those are things designed to instill fear. So let's get these formalities out of the way as we continue, okay, to talk about how the autonomic nervous system is dependent on our five senses for both the programming and deprogramming as we go through the renewing of the mind, okay? It is dependent because for it to unlearn what it learned while being conditioned, where all of our senses, right? And the reasoning behind why the enemy needs to alter those. Okay, so thank you for understanding. I have to let the algorithm know. I am Michelle Dickey, your host for CHA's Let's Just Chat show, streaming on the YouTube channel at Narcissism Cognitive Dissonance. That's right, where trauma healing and spiritual growth are front and center while combating radio frequency poisoning for healthier living. Trauma healing and spiritual growth occur here and at CHAAcademyBTBW.com with God, wisdom, basic scientific facts, tried and true techniques, and more. The link to the Academy is in the description below. Some of y'all may need to copy and paste the link to view what CHAAcademyBTBW.com offers to help you level up your trauma healing and spiritual growth. That's right. And so we're going to go ahead and continue on how God revealed this to me because, again, I was not wearing these because, let's face it, I can still hear without them to a decent, extent. Hello, fellow warriors. Come on in, Chris. Come on in, y'all. And so I'll just go around my business, asking God, okay, so we had to restructure the social media strategy. Yeah, God switches things up, okay, so that we can continue bringing y'all His spiritual truth and content, okay, and messages and things like that, because we got to promote, right? Okay, there you go. All right, now the autonomic nerve. When you think about we're born into this world. Now, in my particular circumstances, I did not receive these until I was 3. So there's that. However, we all still got groomed, and our autonomic nervous system did get somewhat conditioned. And all of it is to tolerate the abuse. Okay? And to try and keep people creeping unawares as much as possible. As much as possible. And it's a thing, we see this out here, how they are unaware. And God brought back to my remembrance the first time I got on the blood type diet, how my autonomic nervous system did what it needed to do naturally, because I was detoxing. The difference this time, because it was associating certain movements that it perceived as a threat, that was a threat when I was using battery-operated grooming tools and there were metal staples there. Okay, so yeah, it naturally associated certain movements with a real threat at the time. But because it does not know that that's all over and that I'm not using those things anymore, it only knows the movement. But because I didn't put these in, it couldn't hear the movements. Yes, I know. Let that sink in. That your autonomic nervous system, right, it depends on your 5 senses for being programmed. Think about this. How does it get programmed? Through radio frequencies. Yeah, certain pitches are used to play on certain areas of the autonomic nervous system for fear installation, right? Remember, the most common fear response is the squeezing of the buttocks, right? That is one of the most common. You can look it up. And then not only that, well, we're not going to forget certain things like that. It's just we become more aware of it, okay? And so that tenses up. And that is associated with higher frequencies, all right? And then the lower part of the buttock that tenses up is based on lower frequencies. And then there's a particular frequency that is a little bit below the high frequency, but it's not the alto. Our bodies are neutral with the alto frequency, okay? That's what I've got so far. But just above the alto and below the high frequency, like a fire drill or alarm, if you will, it goes off for 9 minutes to find the system that was on snooze. Okay, nice, clever. All right. So anyhow, yes, I made that connection. 9-minute alarm clock. What does it do when you hit the snooze? Oh, it comes on. It comes back on in 9 minutes. What do we? We hit the snooze again. 9 minutes later, it comes back on. Okay. Anyhow. Chris, I'm gonna get to you. Okay, so what is the percentage of your mine? The last time I had it checked, oh gosh, might have been, it might have been, I want to say it was 80% loss, but that today doesn't make any sense because I can still hear Chris, I'm going to share with you what I'm talking about when I say a fire drill. I actually was in the process of doing something for TikTok when it went off, and so I'm gonna send it your way. So you'll know better what I'm talking about, because it's not the smoke detector. It's another thing. I don't know if you remember me. I don't know if I still have it up here. Hold on a second. Let me see if I still have that photo. I do not. But it was a little speaker looking thing that I noticed was here, and I didn't know what it was for. Yes, you're welcome. And yeah, because it totally threw me off guard. And I'm not expecting it, but I did time it, and it was for about 9 minutes. Of course, I took these out and put the earplugs in, took a look outside, and one of the workers here was telling me what was going down. They gave me the story. And so from that story, I was able to piece together the 9 minute snooze. Okay, I got it. Okay. And anyhow, so I want to say that as far as without these, I do have anywhere from at least 30. I have to have at least 35% of my hearing. I've got to have at least that, because I can hear sounds. I can hear, especially low vibration. I can hear those. I can feel them. And then I can hear certain people when they talk, depending on their vocal frequency. You see, if I know their voice. You know what I'm saying? So it has to be better than 20%. Right? That's all I can say. I do know the last time I had a test that my high frequency decibels had improved by 5 points in both ears. And so when the ex-psycho roommate was trying to, was basically RF poisoning me, it actually, God flipped it and used it for his glory by improving my high frequency decibels. So there you go. All right. And it's just an amazing thing though, because God knows I can hear better with them. So he said, your ANS needs to hear these movements now, needs to hear them, because what did the battery operated grooming tool do? Bzzz, right? Yeah. So now the autonomic nervous system can unlearn that association, because as I'm making these movements, it's not going to hear the buzzing sound of the battery operated grooming tools anymore. So that's how you see where I'm going with this. So the autonomic nervous system is highly dependent on 5 senses for the conditioning and the unconditioning. It works both ways. So that's what I mean by the ANS needs to hear those movements. So this is going to help y'all in the detox journey, okay? Because that's what's going to have to happen as well for us, okay? All of us going through this as we unlearn a lot of worldly garbage, and the ANS has to unlearn some association that it is responding to as a perceived threat that's no longer a threat. So it will do so naturally, but it's dependent on our senses. Because I had to ask God, I'm like, okay, so if my autonomic nervous system basically healed naturally the first time I got on the blood type diet, what's different this time? He said, I need you to put your ears in. I mean, how else, as I go to the bathroom counter, right, and start leaning over into the mirror and start to use my paintbrushes, okay, how else is it going to, if it's still perceiving it, because I don't have these in, so it's not sure, right, it don't know that when I'm doing this, that I'm not using one of those grooming tools. It don't know that. So he said, put them suckers in, and naturally over time. And I'm going to tell you, in just one day, I'm noticing a lot of differences. And I said, okay. And so it relies on our senses, okay, for both processes. And I was like, it makes so much sense because how is it going to get unprogrammed if it continues to perceive a threat by a certain movement that was doing something while being conditioned to associate that? Makes sense, okay? Because those things were giving electrical shock, right, to the head. So naturally, it is a real threat. Because the biological system, boy, it knows. It knows. So like, all right, and it operates off of memory, just like muscle memory, right? Yeah. So, right, we have to realize, okay. So let's talk about the sense of taste and the sense of smell. And listen, I am not going to share this with you all as any way of being gross, but it is a natural part of the detoxing process. And for you all to get an understanding of where I'm coming from when I talk about radio frequency and the metal molecule that it produces, right? How did I come to know that? It's not just from my forensic toxicology masters. It comes from experience as well. And because Chosen One typically always had a decent and sharp sense of smell. See, God, okay, he is not only amazing with how he created us, how he creates us, okay, but he's amazing in how he, for instance, blessing in disguise with these, in my case, okay, for a lot more reasons than just ANF's unconditioning, okay. But he heightens other senses to make up for what he's like, you know what, I'm going to make this one a little different on that end. You see, so for something that the world may view as wrong with us, God doesn't do it that way because he made it that way. I want y'all to let that sink in. Okay? That the world might view that there's something wrong with me because I have these, or because I wear contacts or glasses, right? The world would like to view that I got something wrong with me. Same thing with y'all, Chosen One. That's what the world does. The world is always looking for what's wrong, right? And if it can't find something that's wrong with us, it wants to make up something. Remember, it's a make-believe world out there. Almost everything, okay, I say almost everything that we experience is due to radio frequency poisoning. Bottom line. Because there's a lot of made up things out there, made up labels, made up this, made up that. I'm telling you, God revealed this to me. It's all part of unlearning worldly garbage. Okay? Because a lot of things that we experience are simply related to our circulation and oxygen saturation. Right? So if you start to notice during the detox, here's your tip, y'all. I know some of y'all might be experiencing small spells like this. It's a normal part of the process. You can be doing something, and then all of a sudden you get a little bit lightheaded. Take deep breaths. Okay? It means that you need oxygen to the brain, okay? It's just part of the process of your circulation improving. And so God revealed that to me as he awakened me today, this morning. I put my feet on the floor, but before I stood up, I had to turn, and as I turned, it was just a momentary, I'm there with y'all, okay? So God told me, he said, take a few deep breaths before you sit up. And I did. it went away. It was just the body's way of saying, we need some circulation there. We need some oxygen to the brain. Okay? But still, take it easy. Take your time. All right? Because everything is readjusting. And remember something, God does it in steps. Okay? Yeah, like I said yesterday, He's not going to do it all at once, because this process, if he did, it would send our body into shock. He's not going to do that to us. All right, chosen one. But let's think about our senses of smell and taste. All right. For those of us who can recall this, like if we've had a little, let's just say a little prick, right, and on our finger before we were aware, the first response that our autonomic nervous system would know to do is what? Exactly. So we tasted our own blood. And what did we taste? On some occasion, salt. And then on other occasions, perhaps, a metallic type taste, right? Oh, yeah. But at the time, we don't think twice about it. Why would we? Right? That's just the way it tastes. Until we can get a tissue or a Band-Aid. Right? Okay. Listen, I told y'all I'm not going to share these things with you all as a way of trying to be gross, but it's real world. This is real talk, okay? Because the human side, I mean, really, come on now. So that is what our autonomic nervous system was programmed to do. But we wouldn't give it a second thought to the salt and the metallic taste of it, would we? Now we do, if the need arises that we would have to do that. So I want to share with you all, when I got away from this, the first go round from detoxing, I was still on the blood type diet, so it's a little bit different. Okay? From the ex-psycho roommate, after he rigged all that stuff up. And then for the first few months after getting out of that environment and being in the last one there, I was doing detective work, right? We were trying to figure out how he was still tracking. Finally, we were able to put that to rest. Yes, and I was able to take my final exam and graduate with my master's. Got all of that out of the way, right? Got all of that handled. I felt it. That's why I was like, hold up a second. I'm going to put this thing back where it belongs. All right. Well, I was able to do that. Now, I was finally able to relax a little bit, right? And each day. So I was able to start getting back into working out, walking. Okay, there you go. Getting that circulation going. And I started to notice a metallic smell with the flatulence that is part of the detoxing. I said, why am I, you know what? Why does that smell like metal? And then I remember learning in my toxicology program, metal toxicity. Hold up a second. What are we dealing with? Well, radio frequency. Well, what else? And then you don't know what might be in some foods that we're consuming, right? Okay. Well, if we are exposed to the radio frequency, so are the animals. Think about it. And so what do we know about the metal molecules, right? Okay, right. They don't dissolve in fatty tissue. They're not lipid soluble, but they are water soluble. And when you think about animal meats, I now know why on chicken breast, for as long as I can remember doing it, I always, and I mean always, cut away any excessive fat. I've always been that way. Now I know why. Because it's in that excessive fat that's on the chicken breast where the majority of the salt will be. Because that's where metal toxins will be. I mean, it kind of gives a whole new perspective when you see chickens running around on a farm. Right. Like their head cut off. Think about it. They are exposed to frequency as well. So we have to take all of this into consideration. And as to why certain body functions would give off. And I know some of y'all have talked about it too, where you get the occasional like metallic taste to something, or like with the salt that's inside our mucus, we can taste that occasionally. But see, if the autonomic nervous system is perfectly programmed, if you will, it wouldn't pick up on that stuff. Okay, yeah, it would not pick up on that stuff. And so before we knew what we're learning today about all of this, we pretty much dismissed it as just, it is what it is. Now we know the source, or sources. There you go. Okay, so think about that. The enemy wants to hide in plain sight, right? Well, if the autonomic nervous system is conditioned 100% and the human being cracked unaware, right? They don't know what the heck their autonomic nervous system is doing. They have no idea. Just like we didn't before. And so we realize how it is highly dependent on our five senses. Because like, okay, the smell and the taste, okay, we've covered that now. And just part of how I made the connection to metal toxicity and radio frequency. Because not only that, have you ever noticed if you are in an environment where there's a lot of electronic going all at the same time, get a whiff of a metal odor? I have. Now we know why. So, right. Okay, less oxygen in the atmosphere when there's a bunch of higher Yes. So if you are in an environment and it's got a ton of radio frequency, the available oxygen is going to be reduced. Absolutely. And because the radio frequency hinders our circulation, so that would go to the second part, the bodies that are not processing it properly. It's not that our bodies are not processing oxygen properly, it's that the body is not getting what it needs because of the hindrance to our body's circulation. Remember, that's the first thing that radio frequency will target. And I'll share with you all, because when that test caught me a little off guard earlier, it did. Okay, it did. Because I was told on the paper that they were supposed to come in to do the inspection or what have you. Well, then I was told something different. Because, never mind. Anywho, remember, God is not the author of confusion. I saw right through what that was trying to do. I was like, oh, okay. So now we know what that means. Okay? Yeah. But once we know, then we're no longer deceived by that again. So what happened was, I'm standing here and I was doing my thing, right? Putting something together for TikTok. Well, attempting to anyway. And then I got interrupted. And so it did. stunned me, right? It jolted. And I felt the autonomic nervous system get jolted. I was fine. Me, spiritually, we fine. But it did jolt the autonomic nervous system just a little bit, but not anywhere near what it could have when I was unaware of it. And so basically, it takes 3 minutes to jolt it up a little bit, takes 3 minutes to kind of, I would say, activate a little bit more, and then a final 3 minutes for the numbing. 9 minutes. Okay, so, right, and we know what number 9 is when you turn it upside down. Who knows? So, that, right, because that will cause a stiffening, which is like tension, has to hinder that circulation. And so I felt the hindrance. But because I'm aware of it, I was like, okay. So once I stopped the video and I was able to put the hearing aids in the case, get the earplugs out, I was able to tell that autonomic nervous system to knock it off. So, okay, and then, well, now seafood, fish, depend, but remember, Jesus cleans everything, okay? Because there are some essential nutrients that we get from seafood. Yeah, we don't operate by the Old Testament eating so-called principle. Because remember, Jesus changed everything when he died on the cross. And so, because I remember seeing that on that Old Testament list of forbidden foods or what have you was shrimp. But yet on my blood type diet, it's a neutral, which means it's nutritionist for my blood type. So I reached out to a fellow minister about that. And he's the one that said, yeah, he said a lot of people with the spirit of religion, I'm paraphrasing here, he said they go by that. And they don't realize, they said that part of the Old Testament, Jesus did not carry to the New Testament, if you think about it. Okay? And there's a reason for that, because Jesus cleans everything, biologically and at the soul level. So, while the fish can absorb a lot of toxin, our body will eliminate them when we are, right, properly circulating, exercising, eating healthier, all based on what it is we're putting in our body along with it. So if I'm going to have, for example, I'd had the almond wrap with some lettuce, tomato, and onion, and I put some cocktail shrimp on that baby and some spicy brown mustard, and I had me a shrimp po' boy sandwich. Gluten-free, dairy-free. Okay? And we good. So that's just to give y'all a little idea what I'm talking about here. And because it has necessary iodine, that's a nutrient that's necessary for our metabolism. But yes, there you go. Thank you, Chris. It can taste a bit like coin. And I know that we've done that because when we're little, we're curious, right? And so you go put a penny or a nickel in your mouth. And you pretty much, exactly. Yep, copper. Yep, our pennies here in the U.S. are made of copper as well, as far as I know. And so, smell and taste being interchangeable. Absolutely 100% correct there. And as far as desserts, I have never been big, even before being on the blood type diet. I have never been big on, like, if I were to have a piece of cake, I don't want a bunch of frosting on it. I've never been one. You get a cake and then it's already made. This is before I had to go gluten-free. Okay. So they would get a piece of cake at a birthday party or whatever, right? And so you have this much cake and that much frosting. I knocked that stuff off. I have never been a fan of intense sweetness like that. I used to eat tarts and other things until I learned about corn syrup and got on a blood type diet. So I typically don't go for desserts like that. If I'm going to do a dessert, I'm going to make a gluten-free oatmeal raisin protein cookie or something. That's what I'm going to do. That's right. I'm not, and for a long time, I've never been a big fan. Now, when I was younger, sure, I would eat that stuff, but that, all of that stuff with the excessive and added sugars and stuff, never been a big fan. Never have been. And so that part, as far as getting on the blood type diet, oh, that was easy peasy. Seriously. So no, I typically, I'm going to eat my meal and that's that. If I'm going to eat something that would be considered for a dessert, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a healthy snack. And it's going to be the sweetness that comes from raisins or fruit. All natural. The natural sugars that come with those foods. So there's your answer to that one. Right. If it's got way too much, if it's way too sugary, I ain't. Because remember, we know now about excessive salt and excessive sugar together does what? Exactly. So, in a way, my not caring for excessive sugar has been another blessing in disguise throughout my life. Now, as a child, I don't remember. I just know that I remember as long as I was old enough to remember that that's just never been a real thing of mine. And I never cared for the taste of artificial sweeteners either. I never, and I know why now, because when I see my blood type diet list, all of those are on the avoid for a reason. So there you go. But yes, our autonomic nervous system, it sure does. It depends on our senses. I was just like, wow, that goes a long way, but it does. It depends on our senses for both the conditioning and the unconditioning. And so, fruit with yogurt, there you go. That is the way to go. If you're able to have yogurt, that's actually on my avoid list for me. But I do make the fruit smoothies now, and bananas serve as the smoothie part instead of soy milk. We got off of even God tells us, and I'm following it, and in the New Testament, as we are reborn in spirit, we are no longer babes, right? We graduated. We meat eaters. So there you go. And that autonomic nervous system, I tell you, the more that God reveals to me about it, the more I'm like, wow, it does. It makes sense, because not only that, now that our autonomic nervous system can actually, to be unconditioned, can actually break the association between certain body movement to sounds and things like that. It can better hear the environment and unlearn any perceived threats. So now it's going to do it naturally, and it has been. It's just an amazing thing, because remember, God has us teaching that we cannot force what is going to happen naturally. And just some more detoxing that had to take place. And so God revealed to me that the reason he put chili on my spirit again is because of the healing component that you'll find in chili powder for circulation. What's chili powder made from, right? Exactly. Chili peppers. Peppers. Right? Little, like cayenne pepper. This is out there, y'all. This is not a secret. But cayenne pepper is also good for circulation. And so I'll share with you all that for my blood type diet, there are certain spices that are on the avoid list for a reason. And so basically what we do with that, you all, the power of the subconscious. Now, when you talk about, I'm going to look that up because you get me, you got my interest here. Okay, it's Robert, and I'm okay because the power of the subconscious is it is something else. Okay, red and yellow peppers, good. The power of the subconscious really is. That's why we're in a spiritual battle for the mind. Think about it. In the game of narcissism on the world stage. Because the enemy knows in the subconscious is where our thoughts are formed. It knows that where our heart and soul reside is in the subconscious. The enemy also knows that the autonomic nervous system operates subconsciously in the background, like a circuit board. So it's like, okay, it all makes sense. The enemy knows these things. So condition the autonomic nervous system to live in fear, then the human follows. Let that sink in. Condition the autonomic nervous system to live in fear first. So that over time, the person begins to live in fear. So when they're living in fear, a lot of them don't know that they are. These narcissists out here, a lot of them don't know that they're living in fear. So again, y'all, here's your red flag. If you come across somebody and they tell you that they're not living in fear, but yet turn around and tell you that they are worried about something, well, that's a contradiction because worry accompanies what? Fear. So be mindful of that. Okay, that's a contradiction. So we don't get deceived by that person. That's a narcissist. It doesn't know that they're living in fear. Right? So as long as they don't know that they're living in fear, the reason they don't know, aside from being spiritually dead, is because their autonomic nervous system is numbed. So they're not aware of it. Like here's that sense of touch that the autonomic nervous system is dependent on. Let's touch on that. No pun intended. But let's touch on that a little bit. All right. The other day, when I revealed to y'all how the autonomic nervous system, the enemy likes to numb it first, has to numb it a little bit, right? As part of hindering circulation. And so if you've got some nails, right? And so you've got an area, you'll find it. As your circulation starts to improve during the detoxing from radio frequency poisoning and excessive salt, you will start to notice. Like, to give y'all a perspective, okay, down here above the knee, oh gosh, I can feel that. Oh yeah, circulation good there. But then if I come up a little bit further, well, I can feel that now. So that means that's getting better. But I can feel that. Now, a few days ago, I didn't. Okay, a few days ago, I was just like in this one spot that I was like, okay, I know physically, I know that I'm rubbing it, but I'm not feeling the nail, right? I'm not feeling that sensation, that touch, right? But I am aware that I'm scratching back there, the lower side, y'all, on the upper thigh. Okay, so I know I'm scratching there, right? And see, now I can feel it. A few days ago, I couldn't feel the nails, but now I can feel the nails. See, see, that's that awareness of the autonomic nervous system. And so it lets you know. And the reason circulation is being restored to certain areas, right, is because now my autonomic nervous system is unlearning certain movements that are associated with the perceived threat, because it can now hear the movements and understand that, okay, so it's going to have to learn now over time that there's no staples there anymore. So it's going to have to learn that, and it will only be able to learn that if it can hear the movement and not, oh, okay, there's nothing there anymore. So it's just going to have to unlearn. The same thing, different circumstances for everybody. So whatever your circumstances are, okay, that's just to give you all a perspective of how the autonomic nervous system does things automatically, and that we just got to become aware. We got to become aware of it in order to go, oh, okay, this is what's causing a little bit of improper circulation, if you will, as we continue to detox. So I just wanted to go ahead and give you all that to help you, again, put it in perspective and understand that this is a process in and of itself. We can't rush it. No. But God will reveal things to us to help him hasten it on his time. Because that was the biggest one. I was like, how are we going to get this thing to unlearn now? Because it's been long enough. And so that's why God told me to put your ears in. That's simple. Remember, God is a simple God. He don't complicate things. He did not complicate our autonomic nervous system. It is absolutely relatively simple. That's why it's so easy to manipulate, to instill fear. So I want y'all to understand that that's another part of the puzzle with the game of narcissism and that radio frequency poisoning. Because that radio frequency poisoning is the start of traumatization. Think about it. Your autonomic nervous system responds to a certain frequency, typically a fear response, because what happens, right? When certain sounds and things come around, right? And you catch you off guard, tense up those butt muscles. That's an autonomic nervous system response to fear. And then tense those up. And then other muscles in the body will follow the tension, right? That tension contributes to hindering proper circulation, to prevent nutrient, oxygen, other things from getting to the places inside the body that it needs to get to for health, overall optimum health, right? And so this is why we learn to be more mindful what we put in this temple for the Holy Spirit as well. So, yep, the abuse comes in many forms from the matrix. Bingo. It sure does. The abuse comes in many forms, and radio frequency poisoning is part of narcissistic abuse on the societal level. Because that's what the enemy's using for mind control. Exactly. So it's just, we got to become aware. So getting that heightened awareness, right? Because we become aware of how our autonomic nervous system is responding, then we can do something about it. That's right. And we can have it unlearn any perception of threat that are no longer a threat, no longer there. But it's not going to know that unless our senses that were required for that conditioning to occur are operating as they should. So, for example, in my case, like I said, I was not wearing these while I was doing my makeup and things like that. Right? Yeah, because for a while I got into that habit because it's habit forming. Because in the previous environment, it was just frequency and noise and pestilence, distractions, oh galore. And so to stay focused on the ministry and business and things like that and case study, I had to keep them out. And so it just became a normal thing. And so now I know how the autonomic nervous system got conditioned to perceive these certain movements as a threat when it's not a threat anymore. Because when I was bouncing back and forth between the hotel, there were staples there. And right, and I had these in, okay, so it would hear the buzzing, not all the time, but sometimes, okay? And so that's how, because the ANF needs to hear, right? It's dependent on that sense. So it got conditioned by that sound of the buzzing of the grooming tool, the electric shock. And so now all that past and gone, and we don't even use those things. There's no staples there, but right now it can start to recognize, oh, okay, because it can hear as I'm making those movements now that there's no threat. And as I continue to do this, it can, the touch, relying on the touch. The more that where they used to be, the more that the autonomic nervous system will learn that there's nothing there anymore over time, naturally. And so now we're just going to let it do what it's got to do. We're not going to force nothing, can't force nothing. It's going to happen naturally, right? Okay. So there you go, everyone. I wanted to go ahead and get on here and give you, that's just amazing God revelation right there, how dependent on our senses, our five senses, that autonomic nervous system is. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it needs for both processes, for the conditioning and the unconditioning. And it's like, makes sense though, because it's got to unlearn. So we can't alter any of our senses, right? We don't want to do that if we want to uncondition it, to break the association with a particular movement as a perceived threat when there is no threat there anymore. So we know that in the conscious, but remember that ANS operates subconsciously. And so now we're aware of the subconscious. So naturally, we should become aware of the autonomic nervous system as it operates in the subconscious or subconsciously on its own. Right? And so we're able to get a bit of, I'm not going to say control over it, but we get a better connection to it. It's all part of that mind, body, and spirit connection. Part of that is becoming aware of how our autonomic nervous system is responding to certain stimuli. And you'll notice things about yourself. You're like, oh, I didn't know it would do that to that sound. Okay. So there you go, everybody. And as always, if you've got questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out. If you've got any additional insight and other resources that you would like to share, please, by all means, we are iron sharpening iron in this growing community of spiritual warriors for Christ. Okay, there you go. And so that's that for today. We're going to be bringing it to y'all whenever God reveals these things, because it's very important for the trauma healing, and the detoxing from, not just the traumatization from the narcissist, but also from radio frequency poisoning and excessive salt that we're all subjected to, okay? for healthier living. Yes, you're going to hear that a lot now because it's not just a mission, it's a movement. That's right. And we're going to be bringing it. Oh, thank you, Holy Spirit. Hold on, y'all. Let me get over here into the comments, and I am going to that article I mentioned yesterday. I got it. Okay, let me go get it. Okay, let me grab it. About the corn syrup and obesity, and it's not the exact article that I found while I was in my master's program, but it's close. It is. It's right up the alley of what we were talking about. Now I'm gonna find it here. Okay, here we go. Yeah. I'm gonna copy and paste, and I'm gonna put it in the chat for you all to take a look at, so you get a better idea where I'm coming from with all of that. Okay, and this is written by James, I guess that's Rippey or Ripey, and I cannot pronounce the second author's last name, but you'll see it. And this is, and it was published in March of 2013, but it's very relevant today. Yes. So make sure I got it. Let me put it over here. There you go. All right. There you go. Right there. There's that. It's it's about corn syrup, sucrose, fructose, synthetic sugars. And you know, really it's interesting, but there's a lot of truth to that, as to the connection being made with. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. This is what it's all about in the community, y'all. We share resources with each other. That's part of iron sharpening iron, because we are unlearning a bunch of worldly garbage, but we're still going to do some research when things come to our attention that, okay, hold on a second, there's a connection here. And so because chosen one are natural born learners. So there you go. And then because a lot of these things that contribute to our movement, I'm going to be sharing with you all some additional articles and things when I come across them. All right. And y'all do the same for us. Absolutely. Okay. We're in it together. I am Michelle Dickey, your host for CHA Let's Just Chat Show on the YouTube channel at Narcissism Cognitive Dissonance, where trauma healing and spiritual growth are front and center, while combating radio frequency poisoning for healthier living. Trauma healing and spiritual growth occur with God's wisdom, basic scientific fact, tried and true technique, and more here and at CHA Academy, BTBW.com. Some of y'all may need to copy and paste the link that's in the description below to view what CHA Academy, BTBW.com offers to help you level up your trauma healing and spiritual growth. Sending love and light to all fellow warriors. Thank you for watching, listening, and for your support. Till next time, let's show some gratitude to the Heavenly Father, and you keep being you. In Jesus' name, amen.